This, as most of you may know, is a dime. In the US, it's worth 10 cents, and it's just a small metal piece. But to me, dimes are worth much more than that. They have a special connection to me because they remind me of how my grandfather is always there to guide me. I was very close to him growing up, and he always gave me sound advice. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how my grandfather, or we called him Pop, had a significant influence on my life, and how even after he's passed, these dimes remind me of him whenever I see them. My grandfather played a great role in my direction in life, and I remember sitting at his house in the living room, and he would be playing jazz piano, and he would talk about the good old days when he was playing jazz piano in New York for gigs, and he would tell me all kinds of things about the different gigs that he would play. He would sit me by the piano and he would play the different notes and tell me that each of them, in their own way, are related to each other in different ways. And for me, this is how I thought music was going to be a major part of my life. He would also tell me everyday stories that had different lessons at the end of them. One of them that I remember fondly is when he was working on a boat as a teenager, he would be painting boats and varnishing them to keep their value. And different flies and mosquitoes would land on them while the paint was wet. And so he would try to take them off while the paint was wet. So then the paint would actually peel off with it, and it would mess up the entire boat. So what he found out to do was to wait until the paint actually dries and then peel off the mosquitoes. Then they would just flick off or they would fall off on their own. I equate this to everyday life. When I make a small mistake or something small happens that rubs me the wrong way, I just sort of let it go and know that in the grand scheme of things, those things don't matter, and those things will just sort of fall off or fall by the wayside in the long run. Sadly, my grandfather died of Parkinson's disease in late 2018. Now, whenever I see a dime, I'm reminded of him. And this wasn't always the case, but shortly after his passing, I remember picking up dimes off the ground, finding them in odd places, like in corners of houses, under chairs, under tables, and under shoes. Places where you think it might have even been placed there and not even dropped there haphazardly. I also would find them when I was really going through rough times. I remember I had a bad day at work and I was walking back to my car, and I looked down and I saw a dime on the ground, and I realized, wow, this kind of reminds me of my grandfather. I couldn't really explain it. There was another time when I was sitting by a tree after a long day of backpacking in the Philmont, New Mexico wilderness, when I was sitting there thinking a lot about life. My senior year was next year, and I really didn't know what was going to happen. There were a lot of choices I had to make in the next year, and I was kind of stressing out. So I was digging my hands through the sand right by where I was sitting, and a dime surfaced in between my fingertips. And to this day, this is one of the most eerie things that's happened to me. And now, whenever I see one of these simple 10-cent pieces, I'm reminded of how my grandfather's always there for me. It reminds me of how my grandfather has shaped my life and how he will always be there for me, even if he's not there in person. So to most, this may be a simple 10-cent piece, something that if you see on the ground, you might just leave it there or walk past it. But for me, dimes are worth that and much more.